The city of Riverdale had always been known for its picturesque rivers and lush greenery. But now, those same rivers had turned into torrents of destruction. For days, rain poured relentlessly, swelling the banks and flooding streets. People rushed to higher ground, their belongings clutched tightly in plastic bags or piled high in carts. Emma, a young journalist at the Riverdale Gazette, stood by the edge of the swollen River Marlow. She adjusted her raincoat, shielding her camera from the downpour. The editor's instructions echoed in her mind. Cover the story. Show the real impact of the flood. As she walked through the muddy streets, Emma saw scenes that tugged at her heart. Children huddled under makeshift shelters, their eyes wide with fear. Store owners stacked sandbags in vain, trying to block the invading waters. A group of volunteers formed a human chain, passing relief supplies to stranded families. Emma pressed the record button, capturing it all. The lens focused on a man carrying his elderly mother on his back, navigating the chest-high water. "Why didn't they leave earlier?" Emma muttered, feeling a mix of frustration and empathy. "Sometimes it's not about leaving," a raspy voice replied behind her. Emma turned to see an old man sitting on the remains of a broken bench, a blanket draped over his shoulders. "It's about staying together, helping each other survive." Intrigued, Emma crouched down beside him. "I'm Emma, a reporter. Would you mind sharing your story?" The man smiled faintly. "I'm George. I've lived here all my life, seen floods come and go, but this one feels different." He paused, watching the rushing waters. "People are scared, but they're not alone. Look around. Strangers are helping strangers. That's how we've always survived. Together." Emma jotted down his words, feeling their weight. She glanced at the crowd forming nearby, where volunteers handed out hot tea and blankets. The chaos was undeniable, but so was the spirit of unity. As the rain eased for a moment, Emma captured one last shot, a young girl offering her umbrella to an older woman. It wasn't much, but it symbolized something powerful. George spoke again, his voice steady. "Nature tests us, but it also reminds us of our strength. We're stronger when we stand together." Emma smiled, inspired by his wisdom. She knew this was more than a story about flooding. It was about resilience, community, and the small acts of kindness that could turn fear into hope. She stood, wiping her camera lens. "Thank you, George. Your words might just make the headline." As she headed back to the newsroom, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to remind people of the power they held, even in the darkest storms. The Riverdale Community Center was now a bustling hub of activity. Emma arrived, following the directions of a local guide, and found the large gymnasium packed with people. Families huddled together on blankets, while volunteers moved swiftly through the crowd, distributing food and water. At the entrance, Emma noticed a man wearing a bright yellow raincoat, his boots caked in mud. He was coordinating a group of volunteers with the calm confidence of a seasoned leader. Curious, Emma approached him. "Excuse me," she called out. "I'm Emma, a reporter. Can I ask who's in charge here?" The man turned and smiled. "That'd be me, Jake, but I'm not in charge really, just trying to keep things running smoothly." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You seem to be doing a lot more than just trying." Jake chuckled and wiped his hands on his raincoat. "I work at the local supermarket. Never thought I'd be organizing rescue efforts, but when the flood hit, someone had to step up." Emma was intrigued. "What made you decide to help?" Jake gestured toward the crowd. "These are my neighbors, my community. When I saw people stranded, I couldn't just watch. So I got some friends together, and we started pulling folks out of flooded homes. Now we're here, making sure everyone's safe. Jake led Emma through the shelter, pointing out different areas. Over there, we've got a group cooking meals. In the corner, some of the local teachers set up a play area for the kids. It's not much, but it helps them feel normal. Emma's camera captured it all. The tired but determined faces of the volunteers, the grateful smiles of the families. As they walked, a small boy caught Emma's eye. He was holding a bright red toy truck and chatting with a younger child who seemed upset. Jake noticed her looking. That's Danny. His family lost their house, but he's been helping in his own way. They approached the boy, and Emma knelt down to his level. Hi, Danny. I'm Emma. Can you tell me what you're doing? Danny nodded and held out the truck. This is for her, he said, pointing to the little girl beside him. She cried because she lost her toys, so I gave her my favorite one. Emma felt a lump in her throat. That's very kind of you, Danny. Jake ruffled the boy's hair. He's been doing this all day. Every time someone's sad, he finds a way to cheer them up. Emma turned to Jake. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes, don't they? Jake smiled. They sure do. And sometimes they're just kids with big hearts. As Emma continued to document the scene, she realized the real story wasn't just about the flood. It was about the people who rose to meet the challenge, ordinary individuals like Jake and Danny, who became heroes when their community needed them most. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it seemed to pour harder, as though the sky itself was determined to challenge Riverdale. The mayor's voice crackled over the radio in the community center. All remaining residents in low-lying areas must evacuate immediately. Shelters are available at designated locations. Please cooperate with emergency personnel. Emma sat at a corner table, her laptop open, fingers hovering above the keyboard. She had spent the last hour drafting her article. Floods Test Riverdale's Spirit was the working title. She had powerful quotes, vivid descriptions, and heartfelt stories from the people she'd met. But as she reread her work, a thought nagged at her. What difference will this make? Across the room, Jake was briefing a group of volunteers. His voice carried over the din, steady and firm. We've got another evacuation site to cover. A school near the East Bank. The water's rising fast and we need to move the kids out now. Who's with me? Hands shot up, but not enough. There were never enough volunteers. Emma closed her laptop and looked over at Jake. He caught her gaze and walked toward her, his raincoat dripping onto the floor. You okay? He asked, his tone gentle but probing. Emma hesitated. I'm not sure my article is enough. Writing about it feels passive. Jake nodded. It's an important story, but sometimes you've got to be part of the story too. Emma blinked. What do you mean? We need help, Emma. The school has over 50 kids, some of them too young to understand what's going on. They're scared, and their teachers can't manage alone. You don't have to do much. Just be there, carry supplies, talk to them. Sometimes just a friendly face makes all the difference. Emma's heart raced. This wasn't her role. She was a journalist, an observer, not a rescuer. But Jake's words resonated. Was it enough to write about heroes when she had the chance to be one? She stood, grabbing her raincoat. All right, Jake. Where do we start? Jake grinned, relief washing over his face. Let's move. The East Bank School was surrounded by muddy water. Volunteers formed a line to carry children to the waiting vans. Inside, the gymnasium was chaotic. Teachers trying to calm crying toddlers, older students helping pack bags, and a principal barking orders through a megaphone. Emma was immediately handed a backpack and guided toward a group of second graders. She knelt beside a little boy clutching a soaked teddy bear. Hi, I'm Emma, she said, smiling. What's your bear's name? Benny, the boy mumbled. Well, Benny and I are going to keep you safe, okay? Let's get to the van together. The boy nodded, his grip on her hand tightening as she led him through the floodwaters. By the time the last child was loaded into the vans, Emma was soaked to the skin, her legs aching from wading through knee-deep water. Jake clapped her on the back. See? Not so bad, right? Emma laughed, her exhaustion mingling with a surprising sense of pride. I think I'm going to sleep for a week. Not yet, Jake replied. The work's not over. Emma looked around. The faces of relieved children, exhausted teachers, and determined volunteers. For the first time, she felt truly part of the community she had come to document. As they headed back to the shelter, Emma's thoughts were clear. Her article would still be written, but now it wouldn't just be about the flood. It would be about the people who stood up in the face of it, including herself. For the first time in days, the rain stopped. Morning sunlight pierced through the clouds, reflecting off puddles and making the soaked streets of Riverdale shimmer. The receding floodwaters left behind a trail of mud and debris, but the sight of dry patches of land brought cautious smiles to the faces of the townsfolk. Emma walked down Main Street, her boots squelching in the mud. Her camera hung around her neck, ready to capture this new chapter. Volunteers, city workers, and residents were already hard at work. Groups armed with shovels cleared mud from storefronts, while others sorted through salvaged belongings. A bakery owner handed out free bread to workers, his flour-covered apron a comforting sign of normalcy. Jake stood in the middle of the street, organizing a cleanup crew. His raincoat was gone, replaced by a dirt-streaked hoodie. He waved when he spotted Emma. "Hey, look who's still standing," he called out, grinning. Emma laughed. "Barely, but I wanted to see this." She gestured to the bustling scene. "It's incredible." Jake nodded. "Yeah, we've got a long way to go, but people are showing up. That's what matters." Emma raised her camera. "Mind if I document this?" "Go for it. Let the world see what Riverdale's made of." As Emma moved through the crowd, she captured moments that spoke of resilience and hope. A young couple carried a waterlogged piano out of their flooded home, laughing as they debated whether it could be saved. A group of children drew pictures with sticks in the mud, turning devastation into play. Near the park, she found Danny, the boy with the toy truck, helping his parents clean their yard. His muddy hands waved enthusiastically when he saw her. "Emma, look, we found my other truck," he exclaimed, holding up a battered toy. She knelt down, smiling. "That's great, Danny. Are you helping clean up too?" "Yeah. Mom says we're making the house even better than before," he said proudly. By late afternoon, Emma returned to Main Street, where Jake was overseeing the final cleanup efforts of the day. She showed him some of the photos on her camera. "These are amazing," Jake said, pausing on a shot of a volunteer helping an elderly woman hang clothes to dry. "You've captured more than just a story. You've captured the heart of this town." Emma felt a swell of pride. "It's not just me. It's all of you. Watching everyone come together. It's humbling." Jake leaned against a lamppost, looking thoughtful. "Floods aren't just about destruction. Sure, they test us, push us to our limits, but they also show us how strong we can be, how much we can overcome when we stand together." Emma nodded, his words resonating deeply. "I think that's the real story." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the town, Emma snapped one final photo. Jake, standing tall amidst the cleanup, his expression one of determination and quiet hope. For the first time since the rains began, Emma felt something she hadn't in days. Certainty. Riverdale would rebuild, stronger than before. The newsroom was unusually quiet as Emma submitted her final draft. She leaned back in her chair, watching the spinning uploading icon until it blinked green. The headline gleamed on the screen: Hope Amid the Waters, How Riverdale Found Strength in Unity. The article wasn't just a summary of events. It was filled with moments that stayed with her. Danny's toy truck, Jake's unwavering determination, George's wise words, and the countless acts of kindness she had witnessed. Emma knew it wasn't perfect, but it was honest. By the next morning, her inbox was flooded, but this time with responses. Messages poured in from readers, many from far beyond Riverdale. This story reminds us what truly matters. Thank you for sharing. Your words inspired my town to organize better flood preparation. We're stronger together. Hope like this is what the world needs more of. Thank you. Emma scrolled through, her heart swelling with pride and humility. Her phone buzzed. It was Jake. "Emma, have you seen this?" he exclaimed. "What's up?" "Your article's everywhere. It's all over social media, and even the mayor of Greenfield mentioned it in a press conference. They're using it as an example of how communities can come together in disasters." Emma laughed in disbelief. "That's surreal." Jake's tone softened. "You did more than tell our story. You gave people hope." Later that week, Emma stood on the now dry streets of Riverdale. The town was still far from fully restored, but the air was lighter, the smiles wider. She had spent so much of her career chasing stories that grabbed headlines: political scandals, celebrity gossip, breaking news. But this felt different. Jake joined her, a steaming coffee in hand. "So, what's next for you, reporter?" Emma took the cup, smiling. "Honestly, I'm not sure. But this story reminded me why I became a journalist in the first place. It's not just about reporting facts. It's about showing people the light in the darkest moments." Jake raised his cup in a toast. "To hope, and to Riverdale." "To hope," Emma echoed. As the sun set over the town, Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her words had made an impact, and that impact had rippled far beyond the flooded streets of Riverdale. The story that mattered wasn't just about destruction or survival. It was about the humanity that shone through it all, the story of resilience, unity, and hope.